Hey, what's going on, you guys? Listen, it's been a minute, but we have not forgot about the Shanquella Robinson case. Let's get into this because there are some groundbreaking developments that we need to talk about. Now, before we do, everybody's been asking what is taking so long in the Shanquella Robinson case. What is the issue? Well, you guys, we finally have some answers. If you guys don't know, Nancy Grace went knocking on some doors, and she got someone that is an expert in extradition with the U.S. Marshals. They are the ones that handle the extradition cases. He has over 30 years of experience. What am I talking about, or who am I talking about? Let me introduce you guys to Mr. Irv Brandt. He is the senior inspector in the U.S. Marshals Service International Investigations Branch, and he is discussing developments in the case. You guys, if you guys don't know, Irv is super legit. I would read down his resume, but we don't have time. Let's jump right into it because Irv is saying what many of us have suspected. Mexico dropped the bag in the fact of the charges. What is taking so long? Well, listen to it straight from his mouth because there is a problem with the femicide charge. The femicide charge that the Mexican Attorney General was on YouTube, which was weird to begin with. Because honestly, what is the Attorney General doing on YouTube when you can hop skip over to 2020, the local North Carolina? You know what? We're going to save that. Let's get into directly what Irv is saying because, baby, this is going to blow your mind. But it's not that. He has a solution to how this can go forward. And guess what? It's only going to take a little bit of help from you. Listen to this.
But it's speculation based on many years of experience with international extraditions. First of all, to extradite a crime within the treaty from one country to another, there has to be a common crime covered under the treaty. My understanding,
you don't think murder would rise to that, Irv Brandt? I mean,
well,
listen, I like you a lot, but I don't like anything you're saying.
Yeah, I understand that. It's complicated, Nancy, but the exact title, the exact charge out of Mexico was like...
It's got to be voluntary manslaughter. Oh, femicide.
When a femicide.
Yes.
This is my point. This is what I'm getting to.
Really quick, you guys, if you don't know the difference between femicide, homicide, murder, femicide is a type of murder that happens in Mexico. They are saying that if there is violence toward a woman, they will double, even triple what the normal murder times to serve in jail is. Why is this important? Because if you guys don't know, murder in Mexico is not a life sentence. Murder, as much as everyone's like, yeah, send them to a Mexico jail, murder is not a life sentence. Not even that. Murder is not capital punishment either. Now, whether you think they deserve to rot in jail or whether you think they deserve to, an eye for an eye, that is something that we can discuss later. The one thing we do need to know is femicide is a crime that is specific in Mexico because whatever's going on with women in Mexico, it's so bad they have to add on 2-3 times the years. However, femicide is not a crime in the U.S. And listen to what the problem is.
Under the treaty, there's a list of crimes. You can't generalize. It has to be specific. You can't generalize this. Oh, well, femicide is murder. No, it's what the crime is charged. If that crime is not charged under the treaty, what Mexico has to do is reindict that charge and charge them with something that can be extradited under the treaty, like, let's say, murder. Now, I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm saying I'm giving you a possibility, and I'm giving you likely possibilities, because over my years of experience in this, we go through this little song and dance all the time, especially when it came to capital crimes, murder crimes, sex crimes, drug crimes, money laundering crimes. Lots of countries don't have similar, just the titles of them, and it has to be worked out, and sometimes that takes time.
Okay, so let's recap what Mr. Irv Spector just told us, right? And let me just get to my notes because I want to be super, super clear about this and make sure we all, Irv Brandt, make sure we all understand this. This man, for anybody doubting his credentials, he is current, he is not retired, the senior inspector in the U.S. Marshal Service International Investigations Branch. They are the ones that handle all extraditions. They are the ones that handle all these things, right? They are the ones. He has so much experience. He negotiates on behalf of other governments and gets justice for U.S. citizens. Now, why is this so important, right? Because I'm going to take it back. I knew something was amiss where the Mexico government said, we already gave the paperwork to America. I've talked to a lot of lawyers. I've talked to a lot of people that did extradition, and they said that is BS. They were trying to kick the ball down the road. There is something wrong with the paperwork. And now, according to Mr. Brandt and his umpteen years of experience, it is the charge of femicide. Why is that important? Because in order to send somebody out of the country for extradition, you need to know that they will be tried in a manner with laws that are respected in your own country. So if I say, oh my God, you stole my chocolate chip cookies in Guadalajara, you're going to be sentenced to 50 years in jail. That might work good if you're in Guadalajara. It's the same way in North Korea, there's certain lines. It's the same way in Thailand, in Singapore. If you chew gum, that's punishable by jail time. Now, we might think that's silly in America, but in Singapore, you will be punished. However, if Singapore comes and says, yo, send your American citizen over because they were chewing gum and we got 2 years of jail with their name on it, America's going to be like, send them over. For chewing gum, we don't recognize that as a crime worthy of jail time. We're not extraditing. Nope. Give us charges under the treaty that we both recognize as crimes, right? Now, if they're on Singapore soil and you get them, that's something different because they're on the soil, you arrested them, that's something different, okay? Fine. But if they've already made it back to America, no, we're not sending our citizens back for chewing gum. Sorry, and it's not under the extradition treaty, so we cannot legally, under the U.S. Constitution, send them back. So even though the U.S.'s government hearts might be breaking, we can't even legally send it back. Now, this opens up a lot of questions that we're going to hear a little bit more about. Just pay attention. But this opens up a lot of questions. For one, why hasn't the U.S. just taken over the case? They did it in San Diego. They're doing it again. They did it in Southern California. They're doing it again in Southern California, where they say, we're going to take over this investigation and we're pressing charges. Why? And here's the loophole they can use. In Mexico, you guys don't have the death penalty. In America, and even in North Carolina, we have the death penalty. Now, we're not saying we're going to use it, but if we do, we want that option, and we can't get that option. So you know what? We're taking over the case, okay? It also brings up a second thing. Did anybody find it odd or funny that the Attorney General of the California Baja Sur area came to YouTube to say they were doing everything they could? Came to YouTube to say that. Not 2020, not Dateline, not even Nancy Grace. Okay? And you listen, I am a YouTuber, all big ups to YouTube. But what I'm trying to say is when there is a case that has this much international attention, what are you doing on YouTube? Why didn't you go to 2020 in addition to YouTube? Why didn't you go to Nancy Grace in addition to YouTube? Why didn't you issue a press release in addition to YouTube? Why? Because in YouTube, you can delete chat comments. In YouTube, let's be real. In YouTube, you can delete chat comments. In YouTube, you can have one-way conversations. In YouTube, you cannot actually be taken to task and questioned. Again, that whole song and dance they did, we're doing everything we can. You haven't done anything. Because let me tell you something with the Baja California Sur. This is not their first rodeo. They know femicide is not a crime under the U.S. Constitution. U.S. citizens can only be extradited for crimes that would also be a crime in America. They knew this. The U.S. Marshals told them this. The U.S. attorneys told them this. And that's why they're like, get your paperwork straight. But they are doing the bare minimum. Why? Well, listen to this. Because Mr. Brandt, Chief Inspector of the U.S. Marshals that handles all extraditions, listen to this mess. Because
I told you about it, and you said, I've done a million of these. I guarantee you, it's Mexico. It ain't us.
100%. Nancy, this goes on all over the world. And let me tell you, I spent years at International in the Office of International Affairs and Interpol.
It sounds terrible.
And I would travel halfway around the world. I would fly to Manila, or I'd fly to Bangkok or wherever for a single meeting, because OIA would send me, and they would tell me, Irv, we think you're the only one that can do it. We need you to go to Manila. We need you to talk with the Minister of Justice and ask them to get the paperwork in order for the extradition.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting on this, just like we're waiting on this case. And I'd fly to the other side of the world and go and talk to the minister, who called me by my first name, and had for years. And we would sit down and discuss the case. And just like this case, it would be two Americans who are no longer in the country, and they have issued a warrant, so they consider the case closed. They're not interested in it.
Now listen, volume up, because this is very important and it needs to be said, and people need to hear it. Listen to this.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm trying to take in what you're saying. So basically, once Mexico issues the arrest warrant, they're like, hey, it's on the U.S.
Close.
Now,
see, I'm telling you, I used to do this for a living. The Mexican, it's Americans involved. If it was an American killing a Mexican, there would be a lot of pressure on, they'd be doing whatever. They'd re-indict the case, however it was, to bring that person back down to have a trial. These are Americans, and they're gone. And they have issued a warrant. They haven't issued a red notice. And those people could be detained until Mexico, let's say they went to Jamaica, because they know they're wanted for murder in Mexico. And they went to Jamaica and they had red notices. The Jamaicans would detain them until the Mexicans government could bring them over. But since they're Americans, they just, there's no pressure. There's no public outrage. It's
you
not
mean no
high
public
on their
outrage
priority.
in Mexico?
Correct.
So
Correct.
they don't care.
So,
the only one that cares,
well, I'm
basically,
not
is
saying they don't
Shanquella's
care.
family. Yes, you are.
It's just not a high priority. And what I
That's
would do...
That's the same thing.
Yes.
You've got a beautiful dead girl whose mother is crying, whose sister is crying. They're in Huntersville, North Carolina, and I find it very hard to believe that North Carolina authorities are not trying to find these people. But the issue, you believe, is the extradition papers from Mexico?
Yes, I'm willing to bet on it. Because I would go and have meetings and explain to them the importance, how important it was to the United States, and basically make a deal.
Let's pause. Because do you hear what he just said, which is what a lot of us actually thought, okay? And let's just say it. Mexico does not care. If this was a Mexican citizen that had been deleted by a U.S. citizen, and the U.S. citizen, they would be burning down the border trying to get justice for their citizen. Because it is two Americans and they've left Mexico, there is no fire for them to bring justice. They did the bare minimum, which was give press releases, plant stuff in their local papers, and they did the bare minimum to actually correct the paperwork and make it true. Again, even the authorities are now saying they are doing the bare minimum. Why? Because they don't care. Why? Because there's no pressure in Mexico to get justice. There's no pressure to fix the paperwork. There's no pressure to give a charge that was sick. Hell, there's not even pressure to even arrest the people that were already in the room. They're talking about, we need to talk to the Cabo 6. before they arrest the doctor. Why? We know that the doctor had to lie. We know nurse Twitter, doctor Twitter, right? Health services Twitter. We know that she was dressed. We know that they all left, packed up. Half of them turned off their cell phones. Some of them had the audacity to show up for work and literally puff their chest out on Instagram Live, but nobody has the BALLS or the conscience to come out and says what needs to be done. Mexico is taking advantage of the fact that she is and let's just say it breaks my heart, she is a woman of a certain that they think is disposable. They were surprised that we rose up and actually said, hold on, what's going on? So what's the first thing they did, right? The local this, the local that. What's the first thing they did? The Attorney General came up on YouTube. You know why? Because YouTube's been keeping the Shanquella Robinson story alive. Of course, all Shanquella's family, first and foremost, have been doing everything to keep their story alive. But once we get out of the family, right? The story has been alive on YouTube. Every single blogger on YouTube and every person on Twitter and every person on Instagram and Reddit and the Lipstick Alley and everything else, every person keeping this story alive has created the groundswell that got this in Nancy Grace's desk, got this on Dateline, got this on the local papers, the local reporters, the local TV stations in North Carolina have been keeping this alive. But the groundswell actually came from social media. So what did they do? Because YouTube is the most vocal, they literally showed up on YouTube to give us a song, dance, and lies for something that anybody with any experience in international affairs could tell you is BS. The lies, the paperwork's wrong, the charge isn't going to stick. They're hoping that they can literally say, we did our part, and then this will go away. And they can keep saying it's America, but every American person that actually has experience in extradition, I'm not talking about like esoterical legal professors, scholars. No. I'm talking about people that actually do this for a living, right? They're all saying the same thing. It's BS. And the problem is Mexico. So what can we do? What can we do? Just listen to this.
If you submit the paperwork, we'll pay all the costs. We'll pay.
Now, let me just give a little thing. He's setting up for the fact that what can we do? Mexico basically, and this is the funny thing, we talk about the doctors being bribed, right? Again, why isn't the doctor arrested? Why aren't those 2 police officers arrested? Why aren't those officials arrested? Why aren't there any more warrants for the Cabo 5? Because let me tell you something. If you get warrants to the Cabo 5, you're going to have to arrest your own. And they don't want to do that because they don't care, right? We talk about how Mexico is this corrupt place that needs to be bribed. But this Mr. Brandt, right? Chief Inspector Brandt of the U.S. Marshals that handles all the extraditions. Whenever there's an issue, they go in and they negotiate with governments. They're saying, guess what? It's going to happen on the highest level too. They basically are going to have to bribe Mexico to do their job. They're going to have to bribe Mexico to do that job. What does that mean? They're going to have to sweeten the pot. They're going to have to give a deal. Our State Department is going to come in and going to have to say, listen, can you do your GD job? Can you get justice for our citizen? And don't worry, there's something in it for you. Listen to what he says. This is the process that regularly happens in Mexico, and this is what we are going to have to do. Listen to this mess.
Pay all the cost of the extraditions to come.
They're going to have to offer to pay all the costs of the extradition. That's right. The mighty Mexican government that makes billions of dollars off of our tourism. Billions of dollars. We are the single biggest tourist industry. If we shut our borders, everything in Cabos would turn to a ghost town. Believe that. But we are going to have to bribe them because it is not enough for them to say, listen, it's in your best interest to actually prosecute. Allot the funds. We're going to have to bribe them. Listen to what else.
Come down. Many times they when they'd agree, they'd look at me and say, you owe me now. Okay, I owe you. Understood. I mean, that's how it would work. And I did that all over the world.
Listen, that's how it would work. Mexico wants basically a kickback, a thing that to do their job, to bring justice for a poor girl that from the beginning, their doctors dropped the ball. The police officers dropped the ball. Everybody dropped the ball. They let murderers walk out. They created all the pain and injustice the family's exhibiting right now. And what do they want now? They want more money. They want more favors. That's what they're waiting for. And if they're not waiting for it, that's what we're going to have to do. So what do we do, you guys? There has been a number across the screen for the entirety of this interview. It's time to call our U.S. Department of State. Let me get this number for you. The number is 1-888-407-4747. Call them. Take a minute on your lunch break, when you're bored, when you are feeling happy, when you're feeling sad, when Shanquella crosses your mind. Call that number. If you want justice, and explain to them we need pressure on the Attorney General, Mr. Daniel De La Rosa, is not doing anything. The man that appeared on YouTube, but for some reason wouldn't go to 2020, wouldn't go this, wouldn't do a national thing. He appeared on YouTube, in my opinion, to shut down the thing. They thought they could come with this groundswell of grassroots support, tell us anything, right? Because we're disposable. Tell us anything, and then it would just go away. Calm down the natives, right? Get them quiet. They're being too loud. No, I peep game. I see game. I will stand by this until there's justice. It's obvious there's a problem with the paperwork. The problem is femicide. They need to spend however many dollars it needs, right? And change the charges into a charge that will stick, that is recognized under international, our treaty and our law. They know what it is. They're playing in our faces. You guys, call the U.S. State Department if you so choose and tell them about the Shanquella Robinson case and if you so choose, tell them there needs to be justice. Why aren't we putting more pressure on Mexico? What is taking so long? The U.S. State Department needs to send in, right? The U.S. State Department, tell them that we need to send in we need to send in somebody from the U.S. Marshal Service, right? Perhaps Mr. Brandt, from the U.S. Marshal Service International Investigations Branch, to go directly to the Mexican government and negotiate, which means, because that's all they seem to understand, their money, their kickbacks, their favors, and negotiate for them to actually submit real paperwork. Shanquella was not disposable. Shanquella was not anyone, and she deserves more. She deserves more than this. You guys, the number's on the thing. If you can't remember what I just said, just call that number and tell them you want justice. I've called every single time I can for the last 4 days. If you feel like there is justice, I would say there's the number. Say what you need to say. It can be a 10-second call. It can be a 5-minute call. It can be a 20-minute call. Listen, there is justice. We just need to band together. Talk to y'all later.